Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I hope you're in good health and secure. I've been hearing from our Sangha all over the world. It's so nice to hear from you. I love getting your emails. So please, if you want to share a recent success or a difficulty you're going through or some particular aspect of your practice that you want some insight on or you care to share, or just to say hi, I love to hear from you guys. All right. On that note, I wanted to bring up a little book that I believe I have on my lulu.com site, store, the bookstore for the Threefold Lotus Kuan. Once again, that's in the opening credits and the closing credits, lulu.com/spotlight/Kuan. This is a little book that was made available by Google. It's long been out of print, and it's called the Doctrines of Nichiren. It was printed at the Sheisha printing office. Don't know that it still exists. Back in 1893. Harvard College Library, gift of Ernest Goodrich Stillman in 1939, and started reprinting it here at lulu.com in 2016. It's the ISBN is in here. You can go to lulu.com and find this. This is a reproduction of a library book that was digitized by Google as part of an ongoing effort to preserve the information in books and make it universally accessible. http://books.google.com. This is in their Japanese collection, and credit to E.G. Stillman in 1908, MD. I like this little book, and I'll read to you what I wrote on the back. This is a reprint of a treatise essay done in the 19th century by a scholar of Harvard University. Well, it wasn't a scholar. That's incorrect. Sorry. Anyway, Harvard picked it up. It was published in 1893 and now only exists in the library of the Harvard University for scholarship. That's right. I believe it is the best translation of the Nichiren school of Buddhism I've ever read, albeit replete with Western idioms and cultural bias. The author manages to stay very true to the teachings of Buddha and Nichiren's doctrines. So, like I said, it's a short book. How many pages is this in total? It's like 38, 39. Yeah, not even. 37 pages. 38, 30, 39. I was right. Anyway, I'm suggesting this book because it's so easy to read, especially for a non-Buddhist, somebody just being introduced. And I know a lot of us struggle with, how do I introduce this practice to my friend, my mom, my brother, my friends, my associates? How do I introduce it to them? Of course, that's not to mean that everybody you know should be introduced. You should use your best judgment. Some people maybe because of their not innate, but strong, inculcated belief systems, believe anything else is somehow a challenge to their very life, they get very, very upset. So there may be opportunity to talk to that person at some other time, but don't force a fit where it doesn't. However, when there is an opportunity, often we find ourselves going, how do I talk about this? How do I talk about this without sounding like, I'm babbling? So a little book like this, for instance, there's a story in here that he talks about. The story is one we all know, or probably know, about the Chinese philosopher and the Chuang Tzu, who, this is an old folklore, who dreamed, he fell asleep and he dreamed he became a butterfly. And his life as a butterfly was full of all of these difficulties. And anyway, I'll just read the story. It's very brief, but it's quite poetic in terms of how you and I understand samsara versus Myoho Renge Kyo, right? So, no, the beggar is but the image of a real man. So I'm just going to jump into the middle of it. He is like the Chinese philosopher Chuang Tzu when he dreamt he was a butterfly. The butterfly had only a temporary and subjective existence in the consciousness of the dreamer. It was not Chuang Tzu himself, but vanished when he awoke. Our wanderer, however, is still asleep. Alas, he is still dreaming that he is a beggar. Under this captive by the 5 appetites of color, sound, smell, taste, and touch, and humbled by the 7 passions of cheerfulness, anger, sorrow, pleasure, love, hate, and avarice. Right? What are we talking about here? The 10 worlds? The 6 captive by the 5 appetites? That's the skandhas, right? That's our consciousnesses of eyes, ears, taste, smell, right? And then the passions of the worlds, the realms, right? He only lists 7 here. We know there are 10, but he becomes unjust and partial and aims only at self-interest. Yeah, because all of those worlds make you quite concerned about your survival. So then your survival, your selfness, becomes your complete preoccupation. That's our samsaric life. But he doesn't use those terms. So he continues. He sinks into the gulfs of sadness, melancholy, pains, and troubles, right? The worlds of stress, anxiety, suffering. He assumes that his soul is doomed to pass through a series of painful transformations in the 6 forms of living beings, such as hungry devils, a realm, brutes, and so forth. To enable such a one to awake from his dream and recover from the confusion that besets him, our sect, the Nichiren sect, appoints the great mandala as the chief object of worship, which manifests the identity existing between the Buddha and the multitude, and helps people to form a determination to become enlightened. If the beggar we have been speaking of looks steadfastly at this mandala and sees his own person reflected there, so as to free himself from the base idea of self-renunciation, he will soon become a Buddha of original enlightenment, in spite of his outward ordinary appearance, just as, on Chuang Tzu's awakening from his dream, the butterfly disappeared and the dreamer became himself again. So, again, without using a lot of Buddhist lingo, he quite poetically examines the practice of Buddhism. Now, you can fault his little wordings if you want. You can say it's incomplete. But to somebody who's being initiated in Buddhism, certainly Nichiren thought, Lotus Sutra Buddhism, coming from traditions they've either followed daily, or traditions they simply were raised in. And even if you're not a religious person, listen, TV shows, social media, it's inculcated into the language. These words like faith and God and these other mystical kind of things. So everybody in the West comes to Buddhism preloaded with little touchstones like the word soul, right? So he doesn't care about, correcting all of those things. He has the 10 worlds in here. I'm just seeing the state of mind where virtue and wisdom have been fully attained. That's Buddhahood. He goes backwards. He has the first world as Buddhahood, and he ends with the state of mind where one is lawless and hard-hearted, which is the infernal beings, hell. So it's even an introduction to the 10 worlds. This is just a great little book. So anyway, if you think maybe not for yourself, but as a little handbook to have around when somebody comes over and they say, what's that Butsudan over there? What's in there? What's that about? Buddhism. I've always wondered about Buddhism. Well, look at this. Here, I'll loan you this book with the intent that they could keep it. It's small, it's inexpensive, and it's a really docile introduction to Nichiren and the practice of Lotus Sutra Buddhism. So I offer it to you as yet another resource that I want you to be aware of. Oh, there's even a picture of Nichiren. Well, it's a drawing, but weren't too many cameras around in the 13th century. But there's a picture. Whoops, I don't know how to hold this. Right, there we go. Nichiren. Anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you. I just recently got a proof copy sent to me. And, any little thing that helps inspire our practice, I sometimes reread it. It reminds me of certain things about Nichiren's opus, right? And the Lotus Sutra. Any expedient means we can use to keep our practice alive and to help influence others, support others, people starting out. Something to talk about if they come over and chant with you. What do you do? Just sit and stare at each other after that? Wasn't that cool? What do you feel? And okay, now what do I say? Right? Those awkward moments. You can fill them with simple little readings like I just did, sharing that story with you. Wow, that's fascinating. Then when they ask you what that means, oh, there is a soul, you can say, well, no, Buddhism doesn't believe in a soul because of impermanence. Impermanence is one of the primary concepts in Buddhist thought, that everything is constantly changing. Therefore, there's nothing that's enduring, that's abiding by its own nature as being. Everything is constructed, is made. Therefore, the idea of a soul, like a bag of Bob, you can use that if you want, or a bag of Betty, if you prefer. That's a fantasy. That's something that our clinging samsaric self, that's so concerned about self-existence and preserving our ongoing being, we create this as a kind of a safety net for our minds because we're so worried about dying, right? But it's a fantasy, and we invest more and more in that, and we get more and more suffering because of it. Well, I still believe in a soul. Well, as you study Buddhism, you'll find out the nature of what that is, and perhaps you'll change your mind. But in the meantime, it doesn't matter that you still cling to that. Human beings do. It just takes more practice, more study, and then you become less reliant on these fantasies, and you become happier because you don't have things to disappoint you. Things like that. That's just me talking. You'll have your own way of expressing it, right? So, yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Yeah, that's not even 15 minutes. So what I'm going to work on the rest of the day is I'm trying to set up a 2-camera system here in preparation for the day when we might have live broadcasts. And I have a film camera. Actually, it's a professional video camera I bought some years ago and just been sitting collecting dust. And I think there's a way that it's certainly high enough quality that I'll be able to tap that video into this editing mess that I've got going on here. And if it works, then I don't want to spend money for nothing. So I want to use as much as what I've got as possible. And if I can make it work, then I'll look at getting a switcher so that I can switch between this camera and the Canon XL1. And if I can do that, given that one has mini HDMI and the other one doesn't, I need to do more research, and I've been researching. I'm going to try to hook that up and make that work today. And if it does, the next video I do, hopefully, will be on the XL1, and we'll see how that looks. And you guys can chime in and tell me, oh, no, don't use that camera, blah, 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 blah. And I'll have to purchase another Lumix or something of that nature. But I'd really like to be able to put that camera to use because it is a beautiful camera. I'd like to tighten up the image because this is really a wide shot, and I'd like to bring it in a little more intimately because I like you and I feeling like we're talking to one another instead of I'm in this big room. It'd be different if I had students here all the time. It might be nice to feel the energy of other students. I hope that someday some of you can make it by here and we can chant together. But again, I go off pace. So that's what I'm going to be working on, spending my time on that. And that will also help when I do the Sunday partial gangyos, so I don't have to readjust and move the one camera for focus on the Butsudan versus focus on my talk. Anyway, for several reasons, slowly I want to move toward the possibility of having live broadcasts so we can have a lively exchange. But, not that that's absolutely necessary, but several of you have mentioned that as potential support for your practice, and that's what I'm all about. So if I can make it happen, without boring, or which I can't do anyway, but you understand. So I'll be working on that. Expect some adventures in the next couple of videos, and let me know. Let me know what you're thinking, what you need to know, what you'd like to know, and let's keep the dialogue going. It's amazing, fun, it's joyful, it's very rewarding for me to interact with you guys, and hopefully rewarding for you as well. So stay healthy, be kind. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, and the support from my patrons. You guys make all of this possible. So thank you for the adventure in that regard. You're funding it. So thank you. And I'll see you in the next one. See you soon.